Hi, this is Roger Dwaran of Kitchen Gardeners International. I recently had a chance to travel to Havana, Cuba to study its urban farms and gardens as part of a research tour organized by the Kellogg Fellows Leadership Alliance. That's me there trying to look like an international researcher. You might be asking, why go to Havana for such an experience? Most people associate Cuba with another type of revolution, the Communist Revolution led by Fidel Castro in the late 50s. And when they do think of a Cuban agricultural product they can put in their mouths, they're much more likely to think of a cigar than a carrot. But Cuba offers a unique case study for local foods advocates in that it is not only an island nation in terms of its geography, but also its economy and politics, as a result of being cut off from the world by two important historical events. The first was the embargo imposed upon Cuba by the United States in the early 60s, and which remains in place to this day, making it difficult for Cubans to obtain many products that we take for granted. The second event was the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, which absolutely decimated Cuba's economy. The Soviet Union had been Cuba's largest source of both trade and aid, and when the Berlin Wall fell, Cuba's exports and imports fell with it, plummeting by 80%. The Cuban government euphemistically referred to the years after 1991 as the so-called special period, but the hungry period would have been a more accurate term. Essential items such as food, medicine, and gasoline were in critically short supply. There was an old joke in Cuba that soon after Castro seized power in 1959, the signs at the Havana Zoo changed from "Please don't feed the animals" to "Please don't eat the animals' food." And when the special period began in 91, the old joke changed again, taking on an even more unappetizing flavor. But for those who lived through the special period, it was anything but a laughing matter. Cubans' daily caloric intake dropped by nearly 1/3, leading to an average weight loss of 20 pounds per person. Although history has played its share of cruel jokes on Cuba, there are some who think that a city like Havana might end up having the last laugh. The experience of living through the special period has forced Havannans to become more resilient, self-reliant, and innovative in their food production. Organic farms and community gardens, known as organiponicos, can now be found throughout the city. Nearly all the seasonal fruit and vegetables consumed by Havana's 2 million residents are being sourced from gardens and farms located within 30 miles of Havana. Fossil fuel-powered farm machinery is being replaced by people power and animal power, which are more appropriate technologies for the small scale of agriculture typically found in and around cities. Synthetic fertilizers are being replaced by organic compost and animal manure. Monocultures and the synthetic pesticides they require are being replaced with better and more diverse agricultural systems and practices. And perhaps most important of all, small-scale organic farmers and gardeners are being seen as critical to Cuba's homeland security and are being valued accordingly. For example, growers of healthy organic fruits and vegetables like this one I met are paid 3 times more than doctors in Cuba, offering a fresh foreign perspective on one way of achieving healthcare reform. I came away from the trip feeling inspired, but my enthusiasm was also tempered by the knowledge that I had seen but a part of a larger and more complex story. Despite its advances in urban agriculture, Cuba still remains heavily dependent on imports of rice, wheat, and dairy products. And the antiquated Soviet-era food rationing regime put in place in the early 60s continues today. In fact, when you visit Havana and you see its crumbling colonial buildings and vintage cars, you can't help feel a bit like a time traveler. But when it comes to sustainable urban agriculture, however, a trip to Havana may well be a trip to the future. Like a cab ride down Havana's time-worn cobblestone streets in a '57 Chevy with no shocks, the journey to sustainable food security is going to be a bumpy ride. if we do look to Havana's urban farms and gardens as one vision for the future, the real question becomes, what's the best road to take to get there? The one question we can't afford to debate is whether or not to get started down this road. With over 1 billion hungry people in the world and more people on the way, the globe's special period has already begun, and the time to start that journey is now.